He was out for dinner with Craig Berube last night, and I didn't get the impression Brad Treliving was a part of that dinner, which I find somewhat...
Well, he mentioned that Brad Treliving was in Calgary.
He's in Calgary, yes.
Yeah,
he's
with his daughter's graduation. Yeah.
Right, but you guys tell me if my radar should be off there. I could be wrong. How often does the kind of president and CEO of the overarching company go for dinner with the coach?
I would think that would be a once or twice a year thing.
But wouldn't you think the GM and the president would be there too? That's what I'm asking. That's what I'm wondering.
The GM wasn't in town though, so it wasn't an option.
I get it. You could have dinner in 3 days.
Oh,
what I'm getting to is Craig Berube, does he have a voice now? Is he not just a coach? Is that what came out of this? Because I've just found that intriguing that Pelly admitted he was out for dinner with Berube last night.
What I take out of it was that he doesn't have a relation. He needs to start developing relationships with these guys if he's going to be the guy at the top who's going to be, with his pulse on the everyday situation. And if they're not replacing Brendan Shanahan, then he has to know what the day-to-day looks like, and he has to be able to trust that, Craig Berube's doing his job, Brad Treliving's doing his job, because you're right, he's not a hockey guy. He's a fan, which is fine. You're allowed to be a fan. But if he's a good business guy, he's going to handle the business, and he's got to trust that Craig Berube knows what he's doing and Brad Treliving knows what he's doing.
Right, and he spoke glowingly of both guys. Both guys are going to stay, and they're going to be a part of the program. And I'm not driving at anything nefarious or anything. I'm just saying that generally I would think, there's a buffer between the guy at the top on the business side and the coach, and I don't get the impression Treliving was there, and it might suggest again Berube's going to have somewhat of a voice, and the reason I think that might be important is generally that's not the way it goes. I mean, they'll speak to their GM, they'll talk about players they like, players they don't like. You got to be honest about that. But that's generally where it ends. Then the GM's job is to decide whether he agrees with you or not. And whether he's going to abide by what you're looking for or what you're not looking for. I guess we'll see. And we don't know exactly Keith Pelly's role in terms of the hockey operations. I think if you're Masai Ujiri and you're listening and seeing that, you have to have radar going, man. If you're Masai, you simply have to.
He's sitting in his office like the warden in Shawshank when he heard the sirens. He was like,
something's going on here, man.
That's tough.
I gotta
That's
think
a tough analogy on that one.
Yeah,
I would be shocked.
just the sense of knowing you're like, oh, they're coming for me, maybe.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, because it was brought up. There was obviously Bill Manning ran TFC in the Argos. He was gone last year. It's Shanahan this year.
Yeah.
Masai has, I believe, another year left on his deal, and then they'll make that decision. Maybe he stays, maybe he doesn't. Masai's always been different because he started as the GM and then moved up. Shanahan and Bill Manning didn't.
But I wouldn't be shocked if that's not done in short order, to be quite honest.
It might be. Yeah, it might be next week. There's another presser. And what phrases are we going to get? The one question, I thought it was a great question, and it was danced around to the extent of, I haven't been here in the last 10 years, but the question was, and I would have asked the same question. I had it in the chamber this afternoon, but it's not happening. I wanted to know, because since I've retired, I think I've heard 5 to 7 different people say, this is the best organization in the league, best fan base, it's just the best team to be a part of, and it's about winning a Stanley Cup. So what makes Keith Pelly's vision or ideas better than the last guys that have? Shanny said it, Lou said it, Brian Burke said it, Tim Lewicki said it. There's been a bunch of different guys that have said it. So what is different? What is going to change? Because the question that was posed to him was, how could fans, why should they believe you? Like, why should they believe that you're coming in here all guns blazing? Why should we believe you? Because everyone has said that.
Right.
Best team, best fan base, they deserve the best. And I'm going to make this happen. Well, really? How are you going to do that?
I think that is ultimately the question that needs to be asked.
And he answered it by saying, well, I'm not responsible for the last 10 years I haven't been here. But it wasn't the question. It was like, what are you, like, how should we believe you?
I'm not sure he's got that answer. I mean, that doesn't mean he won't find it. I'm not saying he won't find it or can't find it.
Maybe he will find it.
But I'm not sure, Keith knows where to go next. I mean, ultimately, you got to rely on your hockey people to sell you on what is supposed to happen now, right? It has to. It's Brad Treliving that has to come up with that. Ultimately, he matters more than Keith Pelly. You know, they're going to spend to the cap. They're going to have resources. All that's still going to be available. That didn't change because Shanahan's not here. It was here when Burke was here. It was here when Nonis was here. It was here when, you know, Fergie was here. It was here when all those guys were around. They've always had resources. The question is, can you make the right moves? And again, as we've said for this is our 5th day now, talking about this, it's not as if you're taking over an organization that finished with 65 points and has missed the playoffs the last decade. They made the playoffs 9 years in a row. They were just in Game 7 in the second round. It's that next step, you know. Like, and I wouldn't expect Keith Pelly to know how to do that, but I guess, you know, he's got to push and prod and basically put his chips in with Brad Treliving and Craig Berube and hope that they have that answer.
Well, that's what it comes down to, Brian. Because if Brendan Shanahan had that answer, he would still be here.
Right.
That's the bottom line. And there is no magic formula or magic beans to sprinkle on anything. Keith Pelly has to trust that Brad Treliving knows what he's doing. And to be honest, I would like to see Brad Treliving do this on his own. And what I mean by that, with his resources and that, without outside intervention. Because I have no idea what Brad Treliving was allowed to do and not with Brendan Shanahan here. Brad Treliving came in. Brendan Shanahan might have told him, you have to do this, and you can't do that, you can't trade this guy, you got to do that. We have no idea if his hands were tied behind his back. That's the truth. We'll see. Keith Pelly might give him carte blanche and say, go get us to the 3rd round or the 4th round and win a Stanley Cup. What do you believe? Here's the resources. Go ahead. I'm hoping that's the case.
That's what you have to hope for. And listen, I do think we know, you know, just prior to Treliving being hired, it had been reported that Shanahan had called the core 4 and said, you're all good, you're all staying. You know, so Treliving walked in basically with Shanahan telling him this is the way it's going to work. Doesn't mean he wouldn't have agreed with that. Doesn't mean Treliving wasn't on the same page. Let's be clear on that front. But obviously Shanahan had power, and listen, he had power from a hockey building standpoint, and he earned that because it was his role. That's what he was here for. Yes, he was here to do other things, obviously in the community, around the rink, and with the history and the fans and all that. But Shanahan was brought in, you know, to sign off on whatever major was going to happen. Now I suppose that's Keith Pelly, but I would like to believe that he will be miles behind where Shanahan was.
Did you notice, Hazy, today that he said, you know, it was a tough 7-game series with the Florida Panthers, and then he just squeezed in, who are completely manhandling the Carolina Hurricanes right now?
Yes.
I had to look.
He mentioned that series a couple times.
He did it twice. He was like, you know, it's going to the second round, 7th game, into a team that's completely dummying the next team that they're playing. I was like, you little devil, you had to sneak that one in there.
Yes. Now, was your interpretation of that?
It was softening the